Hello from District 207. My name is Anna Hamilton and I am the department chair at Frost Academy. Frost Academy is the district's public day school and we serve students from Maine East, Maine West, and Maine South, and we provide specialized services to students who have skill deficits in behavioral and emotional regulation. I am also a duly licensed school and clinical psychologist. We had a feeling that the families in our community could use some support right now. These are uncertain times that can take a toll on our students and our families alike. So during the next 30 minutes or so, I am going to engage in a question and answer session with Dr. Jeff Stine. I'm excited to introduce you to Dr. Stine, who's a local psychologist and has years of experience of supporting teens and their families. He has over 11 years in the field and has worked in both the private practice setting as well as schools. He specializes in helping support families and their teens struggling with a range of issues from anxiety to significant trauma. I think you're going to really appreciate his candid and engaging style.
Thanks, Dr. Hamilton, for inviting me to speak during these difficult times that we're finding ourselves in.
You know, Dr. Stine, we're all trying to really manage the best that we can, given these circumstances that we're finding ourselves in. This is uncharted water that can leave us feeling unsettled and worried. What is some advice you have for helping parents to manage some of the adult worries they are likely experiencing?
So in my practice, what I've heard a lot of adults express are some of their own fears regarding family health, money, their jobs, and how to juggle multiple roles. They have to both be the role of an employee or an employer at home, as well as having all the kids at home, and so they have to be a parent as well. And I just think it's really natural for a parent to want to shelve their own worries in order to meet the needs of their children. So that is a really wonderful thing to do, and that makes a lot of sense to me. My concern is, though, that as parents, when we're kind of dealing with a bunch of different stressors all happening at the same time, is we keep shelving our needs and our emotions and our thoughts and our concerns, and they keep shelving them until at some point there's not enough room on the shelf to put anything more. So I think it's important for parents to take some time for themselves. It doesn't have to be a lot of time, but some time for themselves to process their own thoughts and their own feelings regarding what's going on. It's a scary time, and it has a lot of unpredictability and a lot of uncertainty. Excuse me. So I think parents should acknowledge their emotions that they're feeling in a really non-judgmental and a more compassionate sort of manner. And I think there are a couple things that we can put in place that can really help us be at our best. And I think one of the first things to do is to be a smart consumer of the news. I found that many parents that I talk to are watching a lot of news related to the COVID-19 pandemic or reading a lot of material related to it. And I think that's really important to stay as informed as possible. But it's also important to not let the news rule your life. So what I've often suggested is tuning into the news maybe in the morning to see what's going on, and then maybe once again later in the afternoon or early evening to understand what's happened throughout the day, because being informed is really important. I think when you ingest this sort of information, the mindset I might have is, how is this going to help me make better choices for my family, better choices for our health, better choices for our economic needs? I find that if individuals are becoming really stressed out or overwhelmed by the amount of news that they're reading, it's not serving the purpose anymore. So I think keeping yourself informed, but less is actually more in this situation. And I think because there are a lot of things going on, I think it's really important for parents to take challenges day by day. I think tied to this is also knowing what you can and can't control, and really taking the time to check in with yourself about what you are able to influence and what you're not able to influence. If you're feeling overwhelmed, I think narrowing your focus to what you can do day by day or hour by hour is going to be important. And I think when you have your children at home with you in tight quarters, I think it's important to consider and maybe have a discussion about how to be flexible related to your child's behavior. So for example, you may see more increased conflict at home, or you might not see more increased conflict. It's important to keep in the back of your mind that your kids are likely experiencing fear, frustration, powerlessness, or stress as well. I think it's important to reflect on what behaviors you want to enforce and what other behaviors you might want to be more flexible about. For example, I have a lot of parents who ask, given the current circumstances, is it okay to have more screen time for their kids? And I think it's based on family values and their needs, but I think that could be an area of flexibility given that so much of accessing the outside world right now is through screen time. And then I think lastly, for parents to take care of themselves, they need to engage in what therapists and psychologists call self-care behaviors. So what self-care behaviors are basically things to do, activities or other behaviors to engage in that helps you manage your stress or increase your level of enjoyment. So some typical self-care activities might be connecting virtually to other adults. I think that's really important. Engaging in some sort of physical exercise or just going even for a walk. One thing that I always recommend for parents who are feeling really stressed or overwhelmed is utilizing relaxation strategies, such as deep breathing or positive visualization. If you go onto YouTube and literally type in deep breathing exercises or relaxation strategies or just visualizations, there are a lot of good resources out there to guide you through that process. Similarly, yoga or stretching exercises, again, YouTube is a really good way to access that. I also suggest mindfulness exercises. What mindfulness exercises are is basically what I would have you do is stay in the moment, not thinking about what needs to be done or what had been done in the past, but just staying in the moment. And a real basic mindfulness technique might be to run through your 5 senses to notice, like, how many sounds do you hear in your immediate environment? What smells are you smelling? What things are you noticing? Like different colors, like just getting more anchored into your visual and perceptual world to give your brain, your thinking brain and your feeling brain a break. And then some of my go-tos are just enjoying a good old-fashioned sunset or a good old-fashioned walk where it's quiet. And then also streaming religious services for those who find that useful as well.
Thank you, Dr. Stine. You shared a range of practical strategies that I feel like parents could tap into to manage some of the worries they might be experiencing. We also know that parenting adolescence has its unique challenges. And I'd like us to think a little bit about, like, what are some important considerations for families as it relates to those developmental period of adolescence?
Well, so I think it's important for parents to keep in mind that what adolescenthood is about. It's about your children having a higher need for independence, a stronger desire to connect with peers, to pursue and explore romantic relationships, and also seek out new and exciting experiences. But the way we have to live right now because of COVID-19, it really impacts an adolescent's ability to do these things that they're hardwired to want to seek out. So because of the current need for social distancing, sometimes I think adolescents feel disconnected from peers, which can lead to increased feelings of loneliness because they're not able to leave home or go to the movies or sporting events or other typical teen gathering places. I think it can also frustrate their sense of freedom because it is being curtailed right now. In adolescenthood, school is a very important part of their socialization process and their level of activity. So I think it's important for parents to also be sensitive to how this current circumstance has impacted their school career. Sports have been disrupted, dances or other socialization events, maybe canceled, choir, band, orchestra performances also disrupted. So a lot of those opportunities are being rescheduled, and it's unsure when those things might be scheduled. So I think this all starts to contribute to a real subtle, quiet sense of loss for teens. So I think it's good for parents to empathize with their teens around that sense of loss, that sense of frustration or loneliness that they might feel, because I think it's important for teens to at least get a sense that their parents get it to some degree. I think one important thing to keep in mind too, which could be a cause of friction at home, is in adolescenthood, there tends to not be a full appreciation of risk, or there's a tendency to minimize risk as it relates to health and other sorts of activities. So I think parents should be prepared to help their teen understand the need to follow the recommended state and federal guidelines in a really age-appropriate and fact-based manner.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know we talked a little bit about how to help parents manage some of their worries. So as we keep these developmental considerations in mind, what are some strategies that parents might be able to use to help manage some of the worries that their teens are likely experiencing?
I think one of the first things to do is to keep an ear out for what the teen's true concern is as you try to help them navigate through these current events. So the first step in my mind is you got to be present with your teen. If your attention ends up getting divided elsewhere, or you're trying to do that and something else, it might not fully register what they're trying to communicate. So I recommend checking in with your teen daily just to see how they're how they're feeling or what they're thinking about the current circumstance in some way or another. And it might take teens and children time to fully articulate what their concerns are. You might initially hear, "No, I'm good, things are fine." And then you check in a little bit later, maybe a day later, and it's, "Well, I kind of miss my friends." So that's the important thing. It's not necessarily a one and done conversation, that it should be an open process over time. You want to communicate that you are open to receiving what their fears and concerns are. I think in terms of what themes might be coming from them and things to really attend to are concerns related to their personal or family health and safety, fear of losing friends because it's harder to connect with them, the loss of social network, and so forth, because teens are really hardwired to seek these things out. And some of the teens I work with have very much voiced those feelings as well. So be on the lookout for fear, frustration, powerlessness, and a lack of control. When you're having your conversation with your teen around these topics, it's important to stay calm and respond to their questions in a very factual, empathic, and compassionate way. What I would encourage parents to do is think through how they might want to respond to their teen's concerns, because what I would not want a parent to do is overshare or have the parent's anxiety kind of be projected on them as well, because that then just increases more stress for the teen. So I think being calm and just responding in a very empathic sort of way would be helpful for that. And then arguably most importantly is knowing what your teen's coping skills or what their coping toolbox might contain. And what you want to do is you want to help your teen tap into the things that they enjoy, and you want to help relax them. So this includes things like going for a run, listening to music, going for a walk together, playing games, drawing. It could be a number of things. So it's important to really get a sense of what your teen does in order to unwind and help establish that for them.
Thank you for those suggestions. As you know, our families and us as individuals as well have had to quickly change what our day-to-day looks like. The routines that we had kind of up and running and really well established have kind of come completely kind of come undone a bit. How can families work to establish some sort of rhythm in their households right now in these times we face?
Well, so I think it's important to acknowledge that we're not living in real typical times, but I think within the family and within the household, it's important to approximate what normal is as best as you can, right? So I think one of the best ways to do that is to establish routines and structure. Routines are really important for anyone really, but for children and adolescents in particular, because it helps promote consistency and predictability, and it also reduces stress. And each family's routine may look different based on their needs. So I try to encourage parents to be creative and plug in different activities that your family enjoys. But I think a couple broad recommendations are that I'm going to go over would be easy to implement and I think are important. The first two right off the bat that I think is important to maintain is consistent sleep and wake times. I think given the current circumstances, it's really easy for everybody to have their bedtimes drift to later and later and their wake times to later and later. But I think consistency helps the brain and body stay in good habits for when things return to normal. And really tied with that too is tied with their waking and sleeping routine is also hygiene and cleanliness. So I think that, again, it's really easy to wake up, stay in your pajamas all day, maybe not go through all your typical daily hygiene routines. I would really discourage that. I think changing out of your pajamas and into your typical day attire, taking showers and all that sets a certain mind frame for your day. And I believe it can have a real positive effect on your emotion as well. Tied to things to do at home, I think implementing different chores or responsibilities for your children and adolescents is always a good step. You may consider adapting chores at this time to maybe introduce them to certain life skills that maybe they haven't been exposed to yet, such as cooking, doing the laundry, sewing, because I think that can be especially beneficial for older teens who want more independence anyway. And if you're home and you have all the capabilities to do those things there, why not take that opportunity to teach something new or different? Exercise, I know that I brought that up a couple times. It's really, really important. It's good for physical health and it's good for your mental health. There's a lot of research out there that says light and moderate cardiovascular exercise like jogging or taking a brisk walk multiple times per week helps manage stress symptoms, anxiety symptoms, and sadness as well. And that can be done individually or as a family as well. I think the next two things are really important too, because what I want to talk about is how family members continue to connect with each other. I think and everyone's kind of staying at home, there's that natural tendency for space and for people to go to their separate corners, which is fine. But I think it's also important to be intentional about coming together as a family to keep the lines of communication open. I think meal times are really important for that, where everyone can be present, where you can talk about your day, you can check in with your team about how they're doing. And I think too, family time is important. So I might ask what you guys like to do as a family. Again, it helps keep the line of communication open. It helps all family members de-stress by either watching movies, playing board games, putting a puzzle together, or even doing a video game together. And while the communication and the connection in the family is really important, it's also really important to connect outside the family as well. And so I always recommend virtual social time, because I think it's important for teens and children to stay connected with their peers. And it's good for parents too to be able to reach out to other adults as well. there's a lot of ways to do this. There's free video chatting apps that you can take a look at. We're all social creatures, so we want to have a variety in our social diet in terms of talking to people, and you can get kind of creative with this. So you could set up a virtual play date for your younger children, or your team could use the Netflix Party app if you have a Netflix account. And what that basically does is it syncs a movie that everyone can see that's invited to this Netflix virtual party, and it's kind of like a virtual night at the movies. And then one of the other important things to do is focus on academics during this time as well. I think making a part of the day school time is really important. And with the best way you can, I think it should be done the same time every day in the same general area of the house every day. I encourage it to be, like for teens and children to be doing their schoolwork in a common area of the house where they can be around others rather than be up in their room alone doing that. And I think too that part of the daily routine is engaging in your school community from home.
Thank you for outlining lots of different ways that parents and kids can kind of set some routines and structure to their day. We definitely, much like you pointed out, want our students to stay connected to their school community and parents as well. We as staff really deeply miss not seeing our students right now. And we've been working pretty hard to prepare for the e-learning that we're going to be formally starting next week on Monday the 30th. We really want parents to really encourage their students to connect with their teachers and their larger school community. These interactions and the completion of some of the e-learning activities that teachers are going to be pushing out, like you say, can help promote some sense of familiarity, and they can give that structure to the student's day. Parents, we need those kids checking their emails on a consistent basis. We know that students don't like to check their emails, but if you could please remind them to do that at least 2 times a day. It's really the most efficient way for staff to be in communication with students right now, and we need your help with this to remind them to check their emails. Our counselors, our social workers, our deans, our psychologists are also available. Please encourage your student to email one of these student service personnel if they have questions or concerns. Or as a parent, feel free to reach out to one of the student services team members as well on your child's behalf. Just to let you know, there are a range of resources that are continually posted on District 207's website, including information about meal distribution. This is really a one-stop shop for the most current information for our families, so please kind of make it a habit for yourself to check the main207.org website on a daily basis. In these difficult times, our school community wants to be there for our families as much as we can. So please reach out to a staff member if you or your family need support, and we will work to help you in any way that we can. We very much like I'm sure you do, look forward to the day when we are safely able to welcome our students back into our doors. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us in this very important conversation. And Dr. Stine and I hope that some of the information shared with you tonight related to managing your worries, related to developmental considerations of your teen and what some of their worries might be, as well as getting those routines in place and staying engaged in the school community, is something that you found helpful. Thank you.